like.
And then when we got in the
Fantastic, isn't it?
I think they can
So welcome everyone to the Mansion House Kitchens. I'll be making ice cream with you today. I do have to do a disclaimer, I won't be able to give you any tasters, unfortunately. If you have a look around, you'll be able to. This is not a food safe kitchen. Not sure I'd want to eat anything that's made in here, so I'm not going to let you do it either, I'm so sorry. However, we do have recipe sheets just here on the table, so feel free to take one away with you and have a go at making your own ice cream at home. The flavour I'll be making today is rose ice cream. You can make any flavour you like, including, if you're one of the Georgians, and there's listed on the recipe card here, brown bread. Was popular flavour in the Georgian period. Okay, so if everyone can see one, I'm not actually going to be faithfully following the recipe on here. I'll be making a slightly different Georgian variation on ice cream.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, has anyone made ice cream before? Yeah?
Yeah, I made it with bananas, just bananas and like sugar and everything.
Oh,
So like vegan ice
very
cream.
vegan. Good. Well, this is not vegan, I'm afraid. it is vegetarian, which is unusual for the Georgian period. Yeah, no, this is very much not a vegan recipe. Yes.
Not vegetarian, hang on. So it had meat in it?
The ice cream didn't, but most of the desserts in the Georgian period, lots of them had gelatin.
Okay.
There was also a slightly fluid definition of what was a sweet dish and what was savoury. So a lot of sort of meat-based dishes would have had sugar, sweet spices, fruits in, that kind of thing. So it comes slightly later that you get the strict definition of this is a savoury dish and this is a sweet dish. And you have the savoury one first and the sweet one later. That wasn't really the case. But yeah, so this is vegetarian. Also, there's no gelatin in the ice cream. Anyone else ever made ice cream before?
I am.
Yeah? Fantastic. Cold frozen treat is actually going to be to warm it up. The first step in this recipe is to heat up some cream. So I've got double cream here. I've got a pan on the heat over here, so I'm going to pop that straight in there and let that heat up. Okay. We'll warm that through. So in the Georgian period, ice cream and similar frozen dishes just started to become popular. In the modern day, if you're going to make your own ice cream, you're probably going to need something that can make things cold. So whether that be a freezer or an ice cream maker, you'll need that essential technology. In the Georgian period, they didn't have any of that. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have the electrical means to freeze things. What they did have was ice. So I've just made a trip to the ice house myself, come back with some crushed ice here. The ice house, of course, being the place where you keep the ice to keep it frozen. You're not going to find much ice in the wild in August, so you have to keep it from the winter. So of course, every year the river freezes over, and you can cut great blocks of ice out of it. The lake's nearby as well. And a lot of stately homes in the Georgian period would have their own ice house. The mansion house actually did have its own ice house. It was in the courtyard, which is it doesn't exist anymore. It's now where part of the Guildhall sort of annex is. But there was an ice house there, which was a very sort of showy thing to have, really. The ice house, you put the ice packed in wood shavings and straw, and that keeps it frozen for longer. Don't ask me for physics, I'm not a scientist. But you can get your ice throughout the year in order to make your very special frozen treats. So we've got the cream in the pan already. The next ingredient is going to be something else that's very popular in the Georgian period. We've got some sugar. So, in the modern day, you get your sugar arrives in a paper bag usually. In the Georgian period, not quite so recognisable. This is a cone of sugar. This is how sugar was transported in the Georgian period. There's a couple of reasons for this. One of them being it's solid, so all our sugar is packed into a block, which means you can fit more of them into a small space. So in the belly of a ship, you can fit more cones of sugar than you can bags. Another reason, I don't know if anyone's ever dropped a bag of sugar on the floor. If you haven't, I'm sure you can imagine it. It would probably split, it would go everywhere, the sugar would take a very long time to clean up, it would be horrifically sticky, nobody's having a good time. If you drop a cone of sugar on the floor, worst thing that's going to happen, it might break into a couple of pieces, but that's alright, you can just dust that off, continue using it, put that in your tea, no one will know. Sugar's very expensive, so if any goes on the floor, you don't want to be wasting that. You're just picking that back up, putting it back in, you're going to use that. The same for a lot of things that have to be imported, spices, coffee, tea, chocolate. It goes on the floor, sweep it up, tell it to the person, throw it there. So we're going to add some sugar now into our cream that's heating up on the stove. Pop in some of this, more than that, nice and generous. And we'll give that a stir through, get that all mixed together. The ice cream is quite new in the Georgian period. It was invented slightly before that, but it really became popular in the Georgian period. It's a very showy dish. Of course, you have your ice from your ice house, which not everyone can afford to have access to. Your sugar, again, very expensive, very popular. Even cream, you know, that's more the purview of the upper classes than the lower. But being so new, they didn't always know exactly what to do with it. So some of the very early recipes for ice cream don't actually have sugar in. They're not sweet at all. There were some savoury ice cream recipes. One of them I have heard tell, haven't found the recipe itself, but I've heard of an asparagus ice cream. Not spun the idea of that. How about Parmesan cheese? Yeah? Yes, it's nice. Is it sweet or savoury? Kind of neither or both. Oh, maybe we'll do that next time we do one of these demonstrations then. And the recipe on the recipe sheets, if you haven't got one, please do help yourself to the recipe sheets on the table. It's called brown bread. It's not a savoury recipe, it's caramelised breadcrumbs. I haven't tried it myself, but I think I probably will because it does sound nice. The recipe I'm going to be making today is rose flavoured ice cream. So into our cream and sugar mixture, I'm going to add just a little bit of rose water. It's quite strong flavour, so you don't need much. Something else that the Georgians used to do with their ice cream, which we're not doing today, is to colour it. Georgian food colourings. You could add all sorts of things to make different colours. If you wanted yellow, you add saffron, again very expensive, or turmeric, although maybe less of a sweet colouring. If you wanted green, spinach. For red, cochineal beetles. So that's again where we get the non-vegetarian version of the ice cream. I'm not sure what colour I would want to make the rose ice cream. I think probably red, but I'm not sure about beetles. So I'll stir the flavouring into the mixture. Make sure that's all combined with the sugar and the cream. Alright, so that's all mixed together now. The sugar's all incorporated. I'm going to take it off the heat. Using my apron to move it because it's a copper pan. Copper's very conductive. You see there's a lot of copper in the kitchen here. On the stove, on the shelves. It's a very common metal to make cooking equipment with because of the conductivity of it. And it's also a great thing to make cold things in. So this isn't copper, but I'll tell you about it first. This is called a sorbetier. This is the device which you put the cream in order to freeze it. I think this one is pewter. and it goes inside the bucket full of ice. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. This is also copper, and this is an ice mould. So it looks like a jelly mould, and you could make a jelly in it, but that wasn't the intended purpose. It's a little bit too detailed for a jelly mould, because the jelly won't come out of that. Ice would. You wouldn't necessarily put ice cream in this, but water ices were also very popular in the Georgian period. Again, they'd be flavoured and sweetened and coloured with those food colourings. And these will be put on the table as another way to show off, you know, I've got this ice here. You can eat it, obviously, it is flavoured and coloured, but it's really more a showpiece. This one is Victorian, but they had similar things in the Georgian period as well. I won't be putting the ice cream in this today. I will be putting it into the sorbetier. So I'll grab the pan here. Let's pull that touch. I'm pouring that into. Only making small quantities today. Of course, if you're cooking for a Georgian feast for the Lord Mayor's table upstairs, you're going to want to make quite large quantities of ice cream. It's very popular. Ice cream continued to be popular in the Victorian period as well, and started to become more available to the general public. You had ice cream vendors on the street would sell you ice cream in what's called a penny lick, a small glass, I was going to say container, but it's more of a flat surface really, in which a tall pyramid shape of ice cream would be piled on top of it. You pay a penny for one lick of ice cream, and then you give it back. You don't always wash it between uses either. Yes. So I've got my cream in the sorbetier. Pop the lid on that and put it in the ice. But this isn't enough on its own to make ice cream, because ice won't freeze the slightly warm cream without a little bit of help. So we're going to get some help now from a slightly unexpected source. We're actually going to put some salt on top of the ice. So if I could just get salt, yet another thing that's very valuable and important in the Georgian kitchen. And it lives next to the fire, so that the chef, James Banks here, can keep an eye on it and add it to the dishes as required. Of course, it's slightly less rare in this day and age, but still important for a lot of ingredients. So I'm going to add quite a lot of salt into our ice for the ice cream. So tip that around, make sure we don't get any into the ice cream itself. I'm not sure salted caramel was invented in the Georgian period. Put that in here. So again, don't ask me the physics of this, I'm not a scientist, but the ice will lower the freezing the salt will lower the freezing temperature of the ice, which will remove the heat. The what?
Increase it, so it melts faster.
Are you a scientist? Do you want to explain this? Okay. The heat will go out of the ice cream into the ice through the salt by magic, and it will gets it down to around minus 20 degrees, which is a good temperature to make ice cream at.
Yeah. Just to increase it. Still
I'm willing to believe that it's magic. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for the help. So the next thing we need to do is
you actually mentioned freezing point of the temperature, so I actually got it all around when I said it. As soon as I said it, oh no, guys, don't forget on that.
Well, that's alright. To be honest, I don't really care how it works as long as it works. As long as we get ice cream at the end of it, that's all that really matters. So we're going to leave it now for a few minutes, just to let the salt and the ice do whatever it does to the ice cream. We can't leave it for much longer than sort of 5 minutes though, because otherwise it will start to freeze solid, and that's not what we want. We want it to be sort of scooping texture. So we'll come back to it in a few minutes. We're going to pause here and ask if anyone has any questions. It comes over in the family exchange, so they had chocolate in South America, but it wasn't a thing you ate, it was a drink, and this, you probably wouldn't really want to eat this either. This is how it's transported. It's a piece of cocoa rather than actually a bar of chocolate, because there's no sugar in here, there's no milk, it's 100% cocoa. So you use this to make your cocoa drink. and you have to add your own sugar, basically. It's made with water, you have to be constantly whisking it, otherwise it separates. Yeah, so you have to sweeten it yourself. But of course chocolate is quite a special thing in York as well. So the Terry's and Rowntree's chocolate companies are both founded in York. And both of them had Lord Mayors in the number as well. So the Terry and Rowntree families have had Lord Mayors and Sheriffs. There was one particular, Joseph Terry, set up a restaurant on the square. It's now the Impossible Bar, but you can still see on the building it says Terry. He was Lord Mayor 3 times, and in that time he actually never used the kitchens here. Whenever he do his events, he had all the food prepared in his restaurant and then carried across the square. I don't know if he used something with his.
There's a car coming down.
It's called Child Grove. We're having to be very careful. These dancers were done in the first room. No bumps and holes. So we're having to be you ready?
Pirates of the Caribbean? Was that guy who had that? Yeah. Why did you have to go on that?
Yeah.
Let's dress ourselves and then film another.
Well, I don't think it's our choice.
I don't know.
I doubt we had any choice.
I remember you said that natives. That's what it was.
Yeah, but before that was
Before that.
feminist actually.
I did read this on like TikTok, by the way.
It's fake.
Fake news. No, I believe it. I like the tails.
I don't like it. I'm
Yeah.
trying to show them off.
Sweet, they are.
Make my grandma go walk. Should bring back colours.
Yeah, I like them.
Two buckles around me of in America when they go get turkeys and Thanksgiving.
The hats.
Yeah.
Big buckle. So this lady's in a bit of a different dress. She's in more of like lady on the stairs. She's good.
That's like these.
Yeah, she
Those
is.
are 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Guess these are just
So they've got the emphasis lines. That's the waistline is just right there. Not all the way down. Yeah. So the skirt starts at the dress.
I actually hate wearing waistcoats.
Do you?
I will be talking a little bit about tea in the Georgian period, and I'm dressed as a very fancy lady while doing so. I'm going to be passing around some tea leaves that we've got. I'm sure everybody here has tried tea at least once. Hopefully, yeah. Does anybody not like tea that much? Me too, actually. Yeah, it's not my favourite drink, which makes this even funnier, but there we go. But I much prefer the kind of green teas and things like that. We've got a bit of a selection here. So I'll pass it around and then we can kind of get a bit of a smell, make it a bit more immersive. Okay. Grab the box and pass it on. Oh no, no. Just grab the box, have a sniff and pass it on. There we go. Don't worry, they're very old tea leaves, we don't drink those, so you can touch them if you like. But I'll start by talking a little bit about the Mansion House and the role of myself in the Mansion House. I don't like just talking at people, so if you have any questions throughout, please let me know. Hands up, shout out, that's absolutely fine. It makes it more interesting when we get different points of view, so feel free to do that. A bit louder, yes, I can do that as well, there we go. So yes, please feel free to shout out, say if you can't hear me. It's quite a good room for acoustics, but I'm not used to having so many people at my talks, because it's the festival and there's a lot more of you. So yes, I'm going to talk a bit about the Mansion House, the building and myself, and then move on to a bit more about the history of tea and the history of tea in the Mansion House itself. Okay, so hopefully some of you have been around the building for a little bit. We are the York Mansion House. We're a Georgian building, hence the Georgian Festival. And we were built in, well, they started building in 1725, and and then they went way over budget, way over time, and didn't finish until 1732. But this does mean that this is our 300th anniversary this year, so yay for us, and welcome to the building. The role of the mansion house was essentially, we were built for parties and for feasting. So the Lord Mayor, who is the official residence of this building, or other way around, he had this building created so that he could sort of entertain the general people who didn't necessarily want going into his private home. We were also created so that we could house a silver collection, a little bit of which is behind me here, and for kind of official civic events as well. So I keep saying he for the Lord Mayor. That is because in the Georgian period, it was normally a man. The first female Lord Mayor wasn't until 1941 here in York, so unfortunately it was a man for most of our history. We've since had 16, which is more than a lot of places in the country, so yay, go us. But for the purposes of the talk today, the Lord Mayor will be my husband, and I will be the Lady Mayoress. So in terms of tea and taking tea in the mansion house, the Lady Mayoress would be the one who would have a chest of tea, like the one I'm passing around, and she would keep it under lock and key. So tea was a very valuable resource. So it was first kind of used, it's been drunk for over 4,000 years, and first brought to this country in the 17th century. But even though it was in this country, it wasn't popularised until Queen Charlotte started drinking tea and making it a bit more well known within other circles of society. So once it was brought in by the royals, that meant that a lot of nobles, a lot of upper class people were drinking tea. And it wasn't until smuggling began that the lower classes of people in England started drinking tea. So quite often tea was coming from very far abroad in ships. Those ships would often be pirated, and then our lovely lower class people would get to drink tea. However, even when they had tea, it wasn't as good as those for the upper classes. So there was quite a divide even when everyone started drinking tea. The upper classes, like myself, as Lady Mayoress in the big dresses, like you guys there as well, they would be drinking green tea pretty much exclusively. And the lower classes would be drinking black tea. So even within this, there was a bit of a divide. So for the Lady Mayoress, she would be serving tea in a set like this. So I've got some bits of silver from our collection. Like I said, the mansion house was created for parties, for feasting, but also to house the silver collections here in York. Unfortunately, a lot of our silver is not currently on display, otherwise I would send you off after this to have a look. If you come back in a couple of months, it will be back and you can see everything that we've got. We have the largest silver collection outside of London for a civic society. Yeah. I'm going to show you a little bit about how the Lady Mayoress will be taking her tea. So, unlike parts of Asia and China, there was less of a ceremony to taking tea. So the Lady Mayoress would have this box of tea under lock and key. It would be her or a sister of the Lord Mayor, a daughter, a female important person. Just pop it on the side, that's fine, don't worry. There you go. A female member of the family would be in charge of the tea, and that's because it was so expensive. Because it came from so far away and it was such a big show of wealth, tea was heavily restricted even in the household, and it would be brought out for guests to drink and to sample, but kept away so that the servants couldn't get hold of it, unfortunately. It was similar with things like spices and We have a lot of spices downstairs in the historic kitchen. If you wanted to pop down there after this and have a look. We've done some cooking demonstrations. I don't know if anyone caught the ice cream one earlier today, yeah? Sometimes we do one which does gingerbread. Feel free to find the chair. And with our gingerbread one, when we look at the historic recipe sheet, we can see that there's just all of the spices are in it, every single one that they had their hands on. It was a big show of love to include a lot of spices in food, even if it doesn't taste good. If it tasted like something, that was a good sign, and it showed off the wealth of the individual and the household. And much like spices, tea was a heavily controlled substance within a household. But the servants would grab the box, they'd bring it into somewhere like the drawing room. It's unlikely they would use this space as much for taking tea. It's more likely that the Lord Mayor would be in here, my husband, having official events, talking to a lot of male politicians and the like, and their wives or their families would be going into the drawing room with myself, and they'd be taking tea. Oh, do you want to come in and find a seat? Or you can sit here if you like, actually. So the servant would be bringing in the tea, I would be unlocking it, and then we'd have this selection of objects here. If you can't see them as clearly, feel free to come up to see them after and also ask me any questions. But this first object here, we've got a kettle. So this would just be full of hot water, and very much like the modern technology, they would keep this with them to make it easier. You wouldn't have to go down to the kitchens. It does detach, which I put the gloves on for, because it's silver, fingerprints with marks on it, and stuff like that, and I don't want to buff them up today. It would take a lot, too much time. But if I take this off, underneath there's a little burner, which makes it much easier for very prolonged tea parties or afternoon tea and such. Just put it back and it attaches back on with the little chains. We've also got a teapot and a coffee pot, and the sugar and milk. So with tea, with the richer classes drinking green tea, they would still be using cream and sugar in that type of tea, which is not something that we tend to do today. So it makes it a bit of a difference. And it is thought that the reason that they started adding cream to their that's all right. That the reason they started adding cream to their tea is to stop stainage on sort of china and cups, such as that, because those were a big show of wealth as well. If you pop down into our historic kitchens, turn left at the bottom of the stairs, you'll be able to see our china cabinets down there. You might notice that the first cabinet, showing off the 18th century china, is empty. That's because a lot of the time they'd be renting that kind of stuff and then bringing it in for events and for parties, or the Lord Mayor would be bringing in his own stuff as part of his household. So with our Lord Mayors, and then in that period, we would get a new one every year, and different political parties, different people, so a lot of stuff would be kept updated over time, which is why when we did our most recent restoration, we had to take it back quite a long way, because this building was inhabited up until relatively recently, so they wanted to keep things updated as they went. But they didn't have teacups or the things, they would normally be either renting them or bringing in their own. Because again, as much like tea, everything that went along with it was a show of status and a show of wealth. So they would be showing off how expensive they could, how much money they could spend on teacups and very expensive silverware for this kind of stuff, in order to make a bit of a show of wealth. This is especially true for women. So women were judged on quite a lot of things in this period. They were judged on what they were wearing, their hair, keeping up to date with styles and trends, whether or not they could paint or things have changed, luckily. This is not really the case anymore. But they would still be judged on things like tea. So if they were having afternoon tea, how they would do it, how much cream, how much sugar they had available. Because sugar was another sign of wealth, much like spices and tea. So the whole process is full of political landmines of how you show off how wealthy you are, how educated you are, your family, your status, all of these things are tied into tea and to everything else that a woman would do on behalf of her husband, her father. Do I have any questions at this point? Is there anything anyone would like to know more about? Or I can keep talking a little bit more about various bits. Yeah?
You see the ropes were not allowed to go upstairs, but I assume there are bedrooms upstairs, is that correct?
So not at this point anymore, but yes, there would have been bedrooms in this house. On this floor, we would have had the state bedroom. So Prince Albert stayed in this, the consort to Queen Victoria, and it would have been here where the toilets are. But as this house has changed over time from the 18th century onwards, things have moved around. At one point there was a flat on the top floor for the Lord Mayor. That went out of use a couple of years ago, and now there are no bedrooms anymore at all. But there was a lot going on. So we would have a drawing room on this side for taking tea, and balls would be going on in here. As part of the history of tea, they started by having afternoon tea, and then it became more of a social event as more kind of rules and more status was brought into it. And then they would start having tea as an evening event as well. And we provide kind of more sugary snacks and bonbons and all of that kind of stuff. And again, people will be judged on that and how much care they've put into it, how much money they've spent, and the quality of the ingredients as well. So that will be going on either in here, which is a space created for balls, for dinner parties, civic events, or in the drawing room, which was more of a ladies' space rather than doing quote-unquote business. Any other questions about this kind of stuff? Yeah? They drank the tea, but they also had little snacks. So kind of along the lines of fondant fancies, guys. There are some biscuits. If you go down to the dining room, on the historic dining table, there are some kind of little more sweet-based items at one end of the table because it shows the progression of the meal over time. They're called conversationals, and they're little flat biscuits that are down there, little sweets. And they kind of what love hearts evolved into. The idea is that they had something written on them that would spark a conversation. So they would likely have that sort of thing with their tea as well. Any other questions? Yeah?
I wonder when you said they drank a lot of green tea, so when did like milk being added to black tea become a thing? Or was that a lot later?
Yeah, because it was a status thing, so green tea was used by the rich and the wealthy, and then black tea was by everyone else. It will have been how much milk the lower classes could afford to be using for that kind of thing, because they didn't have the time to stop for afternoon tea. Men had jobs, women had jobs at that kind of level of society, so they wouldn't be able to do the same kind of, not quite tea ceremony, but the tea traditions in the same way. So I think as sort of things changed and taste developed, the upper classes would have started drinking tea, and then they would have been adding cream and milk to that, and then that would have trend set for everybody else. Because there are quite a lot of there's quite a lot of evidence of lower classes being influenced by upper classes, even in clothing. Thank you very much. So with clothing in particular, quite often women from a higher social background have been giving clothes away to their servants, either as bequeaths see very well dressed servants, and there is evidence of some of those servants looking very impressive and helping to set trends. So it is possible that they were seeing women putting milk in green tea and started doing the same with black tea as well in an effort to kind of copy that trend. Any other questions? Yeah?
Do you know why the upper classes speak green tea versus the lower classes drinking black tea?
I think it would probably have been to show a difference between the two classes for a lot of it, and it will also have depended on what they thought tasted better and where they got things from and how readily available things were. So green tea would have been hard to get in black tea. Yeah, go on.
But wouldn't it come to the same place? It would be in China in the 17th.
Yeah.
In Pacific parts of India in the 18th, it would have been all in China. Just wondering, look, green tea and black tea, once they come from the same country by the same route, but given to different classes at different price points. And I can't help thinking, why do the companies running the shit just thinking green tea they could obviously sell out for ice?
Yeah. There would have been there's still a market for stuff for lower classes. They still would have paid for things. You're right. It's interesting that there is that division. I'm not 100% sure what the difference was.
Yeah, I think it's probably to do with like the preservation techniques. Green tea is more delicate in flavour and
Really harder to transport as well.
yeah, so it's like tea, like black tea, you can transport a lot more compacted, so it impacts the flavour and the quality, but you can get a lot more over cheaper, whereas green tea has to be carried over more carefully.
Green tea was also the ceremonial one in Asia.
Yes, yeah, possibly to do with that as well. There was, even within lower classes with black tea, there was a bit of a separation because we have evidence, especially from the Victorian period, but likely earlier, of something called tea dust. So with black tea, they would be selling it in a shop, and then the dust at the bottom of the box would then be sold to people who were even poorer. So there was separation even within the classes of what we could afford and what the differences of sort of society allowed you to get. I hope that answers that question. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? About this or about the house or just Georgians in general? Yes. Yes. Yeah, so with this one, it's coming from earlier styles that have evolved into the early Georgian dress as it was. So it's not dissimilar from Tudor, but there are marked differences and it's an evolution. And then there was a bit of a sort of societal change where suddenly it was much more fashionable to have a lot more movement and be a lot airier. And this was in the quote-unquote Regency era when we had the Prince Regent on the throne want to say something as well?
It's also because cotton became extremely fashionable during this time period as well, and for a short period kind of overtook silk in fashionability. So those kind of empire waistline dresses were often made out of super fine cotton that came from India, and that was even more extensively finer than French silk at that time. So even though it looks similar, it's still definitely a shirt craft. Yes.
Perfect. There you go. Well, that's an actual question. Anyone has any other questions? Now I'll do this while we've got people in the room. Well, thank you. If you do have any more questions, feel free to just grab me if you'd rather not say them out in a big group.